Hello and welcome to the Rogues Gallery. In today's video, I will present some of Batman's most notorious enemies. These will be in no particular order, but just a selection of some of my personal favourites, so apologies in advance if I exclude some of your preferred villains, but I cannot include them all, otherwise this video would be incredibly long. So we will begin with one of Batman's oldest antagonists, the Penguin. Oswald Cobblepot's obsession with ornithology began as a child when his widowed mother ran a pet shop specialising in exotic birds. Oswald was often bullied for his pointy nose, but his mother's insistence on him carrying an umbrella to school did not help matters. As an adult, Cobblepot would utilise an arsenal of weaponised umbrellas to begin a career in crime. He also persuaded the scientific genius and mute Harold to create a device that would control birds to commit acts of terror. In addition to this, Penguin became a corrupt stock trader and owner of the premier nightclub in Gotham called the Iceberg Lounge. The Penguin is clearly an awesome and well-established villain within the Rogues Gallery. In keeping with the bird theme, we move to a personal favourite of mine, the Scarecrow. As another victim of childhood bullying for his gawky appearance, Jonathan Crane began studying phobias to get his revenge on his tormentors. He would eventually become an expert psychologist and even had an understanding of chemistry before taking a job as a professor at Gotham University. Unfortunately, he was dismissed for violating safety regulations within his teaching methods, which ultimately pushed him over the edge. Feeling rejected again, Crane adopted the guise of the Scarecrow and utilised his fear gas to extract his revenge. This formula was so potent that it would turn a victim's deepest phobias into a reality through convincing hallucinations. When Crane used the gas on the Gotham University governors who fired him, it literally scared them to death. No Batman Rogues Gallery is complete without the Scarecrow. Another character who uses chemical warfare is botanist Pamela Isley, aka Poison Ivy. Ivy attained her powers when she went to work for Dr. Jason Woodrue, who experimented on her hoping to create a human-plant hybrid. Now immune to all toxins, Ivy's ultimate desire is to return the Earth to the control of her beloved plants. As a seductive yet nefarious woman, her natural pheromones are more than enough to influence any man to do her bidding. Definitely a worthy character amongst Batman's greatest foes. Our second femme fatale is Catwoman. After the tragic death of her parents, Selina Kyle became a child of the streets, surviving through petty theft. She would add to her gymnast skills by learning martial arts in a backstreet dojo and later boxing from ex-heavyweight champ Ted Grant. With her sharpened skills, Selina would become Catwoman, Gotham's most successful cat burglar. Despite being on the wrong side of the law, she has a strange relationship with Batman, fighting against and alongside the Dark Knight, as well as relentlessly flirting with him. From a woman obsessed with cats to a man obsessed with hats, we have the Mad Hatter. Jervis Tetch had a fascination with Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which culminated in him believing that he was the Mad Hatter. This obsession has manifested itself in Tetch kidnapping young girls and forcing them to become his new Alice. Should they fail to live up to his impossible standards, the Mad Hatter would ensure their deaths. When he's not searching for his latest Alice, Mad Hatter will spend time manipulating his victims with powerful mind control technology. In my opinion, the Mad Hatter must be one of the creepiest villains on this list. Another villain who messes with heads in a very different way is the Riddler. Edward Nygma's love of puzzles developed into a career running a crooked carnival game. The Riddler would later use his love of riddles to follow a path of crime by sending the police and Batman complex clues to the crimes he committed. Whatever you think of the Riddler, he is certainly one of the most well-known Batman villains. Also relying on brains over brawn is our next villain, the Calendar Man. Day's obsession with calendars has seen him commit crimes linked to certain days of the year. His lack of success, however, has seen him spend most of his time incarcerated. On occasion, he has assisted Batman decipher the identity of serial killers whose crimes coincided with the major holidays. Although not one of the most established villains within the gallery, his Hannibal Lecter-like role in The Long Halloween has earned him a place on my list. Speaking of serial killers, we fittingly move on to our next member of the Rogues Gallery, Victor Zsasz. After losing his family and fortune, Zsasz became completely disillusioned with life and tried to commit suicide. However, his attempt to end his life was interrupted by a homeless man who tried to stab Zsasz for not giving him any money. Zsasz would kill this man, and in that moment realised the meaningless nature of life. From then on, Zsasz had a new reason to live, to liberate others of their pointless existence. He would mark each kill by cutting a scar on his body, which tallied to hundreds of victims. Zsasz is another one of the Batman villains I find most interesting and easily makes this list. Next, we have a villain who is less about physical scars and more about emotional scars. I am of course talking about the lovable but lethal Harley Quinn. Initially an Arkham Asylum psychiatrist assigned to treat the Joker, Dr. Harleen Quinzel was eventually driven mad by the Clown Prince of Crime. After helping the Joker escape, Quinzel became as unstable as the Joker himself as she adopted the persona of Harley Quinn. Violent and unpredictable, she will do anything to prove her love for Mr. J. This character has become a real favourite of mine since the animated series, and she will always have a place in Batman's Rogues Gallery. Moving onwards to our next villain, we have childhood friend of Bruce Wayne, Dr. Thomas Elliot, who would later become the costume criminal with a vendetta against Bruce Wayne and Batman. During childhood, Elliot attempted to kill his parents in order to claim an early inheritance. However, his plan failed when the surgical skills of Dr. Thomas Wayne saved their lives. This child sociopath would blame Bruce Wayne for the failure of his plan. Ironically, Thomas would grow up to become an incredibly skilled surgeon and planned an elaborate revenge scheme on Wayne. Covering his identity with bandages, Elliot adopted the villainous persona of Hush. Despite his advanced skills in hand-to-hand combat, he was defeated and unmasked by the Dark Knight. Hush continues to plot his vengeance against Batman, engineering complex schemes with surgical precision. Despite being a newer villain, Hush has become iconic, immediately earning his place within the gallery. Another former friend of Bruce Wayne within our Rogues Gallery is former District Attorney Harvey Dent. Dent was severely scarred when a criminal he was prosecuting threw acid in his face. His mask of sanity dissolved with his visage as his dark alter ego took over. Now as the villain Two-Face, this sociopath's every action is determined by the flip of a two-headed silver dollar. Just like him, the coin is scarred on one side, representing his own duality. Dent is certainly one of the most infamous Batman villains, and this list would not be complete without him. Despite a grief-stricken childhood, Strange made it through an orphanage to become a well-respected mind in the scientific community. Eventually he would become a professor of psychiatry at Gotham State University until he was suspended for his controversial theories on genetic engineering. Ironically, this chemical genius is unfulfilled with his own physical traits and wishes to take the identity of Batman for himself. His hatred of the Caped Crusader morphed into an obsession where he would use his medical expertise to plot a series of genetic mine-related plots in order to defeat and replace the Dark Knight. As another one of Batman's earlier villains, Strange certainly has a spot on this list. From one doctor to the next, we make our way over to Mr. Freeze. Victor Freeze left his job in a teaching post to work for a drugs company called GothCorp in order to save the life of his terminally ill wife, Nora. However, when they denied him funding, Freeze could no longer continue his research. In addition to this, a cryogenic accident left Mr. Freeze unable to survive outside of sub-zero temperatures. Swearing revenge on GothCorp, Freeze would wear his supercooling armor and fire his ice-blasting coal gun at the executives of the company. This character has appeared in almost every Batman medium possible, so he certainly belongs within the Rogues Gallery. Another villain who wants to preserve life is Ra's or Ra's al Ghul. By taking chemical baths within the Lazarus Pits, Ra's al Ghul has become immortal. This master of strategy and organisation seeks to save the world from ecological devastation by destroying the majority of the population. Believing that Batman can assist him in his mission, Al Ghul wishes to convince the Dark Knight of the importance of his righteous cause. This character was brilliantly depicted by Liam Neeson in Batman Begins and rightfully earns a place on this list. We now move on to some really monstrous villains within our Rogues Gallery, and the first of which is Bane. As a child, Bane survived a long period of solitary confinement where he developed his body and intellect. After almost 4 decades in prison, he would be chosen for a military experiment and injected with the venom drug which greatly enhanced his strength. Bane would use his newfound fortitude to escape prison and end up in Gotham, where he would break Batman's back. Any villain who almost cripples the Dark Knight belongs on this list without any argument. Our next monster is the villain known as Clayface. Numerous individuals have taken the form of the malleable menace, however each version has proven to be a fierce opponent for Batman. Clayface remains a virtually indestructible shape-shifting monster who terrorizes Gotham. I absolutely love the more supernatural villains within the Rogues Gallery, so Clayface easily gets a place on the list. Another ogre on our list and a favourite of mine is Killer Croc. Born with a condition that turned his skin green and scaly, Waylon Jones was raised by his alcoholic aunt in a Florida slum where he was bullied. Eventually Jones would snap, no pun intended, almost killing one of his tormentors. As a result, he would end up in reform school where he received little education and became misanthropic. After being released from prison for murder, Jones would join a travelling carnival where he became known as the alligator wrestler Killer Croc. Eventually, Croc would turn his back on the carnival and become a gangster, growing more reptilian and psychotic in the process. Perhaps a villain that represents Batman gone horribly wrong is Man-Bat. Dr. Langstrom was an expert in mammal biology and experimented on himself to cure his deafness. In order to attain echolocation abilities, Langstrom took his own serum, which transformed him into a man-sized bat. As Man-Bat, this crazed creature terrorized Gotham until Langstrom refined his formula so that he could mutate into the giant bat whilst keeping his intelligence. Man-Bat is certainly one of my favourites and rightfully earns his place within the Rogues Gallery. Now we leave one creature of the night and head over to another with the Court of Owls. Controlling Gotham City for centuries, the Court of Owls is an ancient conspiracy and violent group who use architecture and murder to secure political influence. This faction utilise a breed of highly trained assassins known as the Talons, and the leaders of the organisation hide their identities under owl masks. The rest of the court, however, are mutated and appear to be human-owl hybrids. Despite being a newer addition to the Rogues Gallery, I love how DC Comics incorporated the owl as the natural enemy of the bat into this story. Our next masked villain is also obsessed with power and control because he is the Black Mask. Roman Ionis inherited a multi-million-dollar fortune when his parents mysteriously died in a fire. He would later take over his parents' cosmetics company but run it into the ground before Bruce Wayne purchased Janus Cosmetics. Feeling like Wayne stole his legacy, Ionis carved a black mask from his father's coffin and murdered numerous Wayne employees. After his mask was burned into his face, he became a living black mask and one of Gotham's most ruthless crime lords. His false-face society consists of an army of masked henchmen who do his bidding. Not necessarily one of my favourites on this list, but certainly worthy of a place. Another mob boss on our list is the ventriloquist and his puppet Scarface. As an orphan child with repressed feelings, Arnold Wesker always had a troubled existence. However, it wasn't until he met Scarface, a gangster-themed puppet made of wood from Blackgate Gallows, that the ventriloquist, a mastermind criminal, was born. Despite their rather symbiotic relationship, the two are the antithesis of each other and often come into conflict. It has been suggested by many writers that Scarface's existence is more than just the ventriloquist's delusions, but something supernatural. I absolutely love this character, and he is certainly one of the creepiest on this list in my opinion. Last but certainly not least, we have arguably Batman's deadliest and most unpredictable foe. He is of course the Joker. After falling into a vat of chemical waste whilst fleeing the scene of a crime, his skin turned white and his hair green. Soon after this, the Joker was driven utterly insane and became fixated on Batman as his arch nemesis. The Joker has committed some of Gotham's most despicable crimes. These include killing Jason Todd, the second Robin, by beating him to death with a crowbar before detonating a bomb that killed the boy Wonder and his mother. However, the Joker did not stop there on his war against the Bat family, as he shot Barbara Gordon in the spine, confining her to a wheelchair and ending her run as Batgirl. It could be said that no other villain in the Rogues Gallery has brought Batman the anguish that the Joker has, causing the Dark Knight to question his own moral code. With the Joker as our quintessential villain added to the list, we can leave this tour of the Rogues Gallery. I hope that you enjoyed this first episode, and please list other Rogues Galleries that you would like me to visit in the comments section. As always, thank you for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to subscribe.